Top of the morning, everybody. Welcome to a Friday edition of GoJo and Golic. What is coming up here on GoJo and Golic on DraftKings Network for the next 2 hours? A couple topics we'll be discussing. Surviving Serbia. America, baby. USA onto the gold medal game, but barely, while Jason Tatum's mom is very pissed off. Lead a lamb to laughter. Jerry makes CeeDee chuckle, a cackle, if you will, about his contract. And a Football Friday, don't mind if we do. Christian Darrisaw of the Vikings, ESPN's Paul Finebaum will join us. You like pigskin? Buckle up. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Emerson Latzia in a hockey sweater back at the DraftKings studios in Boston. We got a great show for everybody. As always, download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. I am fired up that we have Paul Finebaum, the mouth of the South himself, coming to grace us with his presence today. I can't wait for that later on. We had preseason football going off last night in a way that really finally made me feel like we were back. The Hall of Fame game was nice to wet the whistle a little bit. Last night was the main course with some of the young quarterbacks we got to see, and I am fired up. But, Dad, we witnessed an all-timer yesterday in U.S. men's national team basketball as they pull out the come-from-behind victory against Serbia. It was one of those games that felt like in real time we knew we were watching something special. That will be one of the best basketball games I've watched in I don't know how long, as Steph Curry leads the way with 36 points. LeBron James delivers another Olympic triple-double. Joel Embiid shows up big for this team, and they erase a deficit against Nikola Jokic and the Serbia team. They had waxed the previous two meetings in this Olympic run, so there was so much to take in. I'm curious right now, as we just bask in the glow of a game that feels like it was bigger than most, what are you going to remember about this all-timer? What's the thing that stood out to you the most?
Well, as the elder statesman of this show, I will say it was the elder statesmen who were in the game at the end. as getting this done over the 20-somethings. The only 20-something in the game was Devin Booker when it mattered most. At 27 years old, you had Joel Embiid at 30. You have KD at 35, Steph at 36, and LeBron at 39. So it was the old folks that took charge in this game. And really, LeBron and KD and Embiid. Embiid played well because Joker had 4 fouls going into the fourth quarter, and it's 5 in international rules, so one more and he would have been done. So Embiid was big time as well. Steph Curry was out of his mind with 36 points, 9 of 14 from three-point line. But that's what's going to stick out to me is when it was on the line. And now USA came back from 17 down, 15, I think, or 12 or 15 in the fourth quarter. But what they came back from, but that's what's going to stay with me of the players that were on the court when they did it. The old timers were on the court getting it done.
You had 4 MVPs on the court at that point, and I saw someone tweet this, and I had to go look it up, and it was true. All 3 of the guys you mentioned in KD, Steph, and LeBron were as old or older than the oldest member of the Dream Team from 92. Larry Bird was 35 years old. Him and Magic were the only 2 players that were over 30 on that roster, and neither of them averaged double-digit points during that Olympic run, whereas LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant all averaging double digits, all 35 or older, and all making it happen down the stretch of that game. LeBron James delivers just the 4th triple-double in Olympic history with 16, 12, and 10. According to ESPN Stats and Info, he is the first men's basketball player ever with multiple triple-doubles in the Olympics, having previously done so in 2012. So, yeah, Dad, these guys took over when it mattered the most, and it brings me to what I actually think galvanized Team USA in this. We can get to people's disagreements with Steve Kerr's rotation, Jason Tatum's angry mother at the hands of another coach's decision, DNP, for the Boston Celtics star. The game changed when Bogdan Bogdanović poked the bear. And not LeBron James, not Steph Curry, and not Kevin Durant. He went over and 3-finger saluted U.S. men's basketball hero and LeBron James's personal friend, Carmelo Anthony, on the sideline. Dad, I don't know what happened, if it was just Carmelo talking smack during the game or what, but Serbia seemed to be jawing back and forth with him at Spike Lee levels during this game. Bogdan went over there after hitting a big shot and gave the 3 fingers to the dome that had become synonymous with Carmelo Anthony during his career, and it lit a fire under LeBron James that I think was a palpable part of what ended up happening in this game.
Carmelo, obviously, I think Carmelo had to be talking some smack to have the players on the court actually reacting to it, and then he was directing traffic in the fourth quarter. I mean, he was like a coach on the sideline with Durant with the ball in an ISO situation. It was hilarious, but yeah, he definitely seemed to poke the bear. The players obviously had a huge wake-up call. This was the 3rd time we played Serbia, beat them convincingly in exhibition and in the first round. Where I think the biggest difference in those games, those first 2 games, Serbia was 19 of 71 from three-point land, 27%. This game, they were 50%. Now, they were 50%. They were 50% going into. They ended up at 38%. They were 50% going into the fourth quarter. They were 15 of 30 going into the fourth quarter. 0 for 9 in the fourth quarter. While the U.S., because of Steph, ended up 50%, 16 to 32, but 0 for 9 in the fourth. The defense played out a little more and played a little tougher, but still Serbia had a couple of open threes, dead-ass open threes that they just flat out missed in the fourth quarter. So that was a big difference as their 3-point game went in the tank, combined by them missing and USA's defense.
Yeah, Steve Kerr's taken a lot of flack coming off this game for a lot of things in terms of the rotation. You even had Draymond Green tweeting out during the game about his head coach. Sometimes you got to scrap those rotations. But, Dad, in the fourth quarter, the adjustment that Team USA made, and whether it came from Steve Kerr himself, whether it came from LeBron James and the guys on the court, to switch LeBron onto Nikola Jokic to help them better defend what Serbia had been doing, which is, hey, Jokic had one of his typical games, I think 17 points and 11 assists in this one, where they're constantly trying to find the right timing to send double teams to and end up freeing up their bigs by putting LeBron James on Jokic. Jokic to try and change that up. That move was one of the ones that ended up helping them defend the three ball better in the fourth quarter, helping them overall adjust to what Serbia had been doing offensively. That had been a real clean performance. So I don't know where you are, Dad, on the Steve Kerr criticism, but I do think him, the coaching staff, and the players deserve a lot of credit for that adjustment that came late.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And there was not a lot adjusting of guarding personnel, but there certainly wasn't much adjusting of personnel in the fourth quarter, as we mentioned, sticking with the older guys and sticking with Embiid because it was two MVPs going up against each other, him and Joker. And as we mentioned, Joker had 4 fouls. So Embiid could go after him on the offensive side. Embiid ended up taking the second amount of shots, field goal attempts behind Curry. He took 11, was 8 of 11, but he was going at Joker to just try and get that last foul on him. But yeah, the switching off and they had fouls to give to USA. So when Jokovic had the ball under the basket on LeBron would foul him. When he got matched up on Booker, it was Joker on Booker one time in the paint, and Booker was like, I'm just going to foul him. You're just going to take a foul here, because they had some fouls to give. So that certainly helped.
It was amazing, though, what Team USA did here. And when we remember this Olympic run now, I think in real time we can call this, because we're going to get to the U.S.-France matchup that's coming up here, but we're going to remember this game, I think, more than the game against France. The U.S. is something like 16.5 point favorite going into the gold medal round. This is going to end up being like the Miracle on Eiffel, like our version of the Miracle on Ice. Obviously not the same caveat with the Soviets and all that background and dynamic, but having the best and most memorable game come in the semifinal round instead of the actual gold medal round, because what you had in this game was one of the most potent substances on earth. Dad, you had weaponized Nikola Jokic. He seemed to care more about this game than I have seen him care about a basketball game ever. He is red-faced on the sideline, screaming his head off, imploring these guys. That whole Serbian bench was locked in and loaded the entire time in a marquee shooting performance. I was amazed. We had seen this some in like baseball in the World Baseball Classic, but I just thought that was because Mike Trout's never gotten a chance to actually play meaningful postseason baseball. But for Nikola Jokic and these guys with the chance to play against this U.S. team that everyone knows is the big bad on the block, he seemed to really relish that challenge, and it definitely brought out the best of Embiid in the process too. So I'm with you. Seeing those guys go up against each other was like seeing the MVP race from an entire season a year ago play out in real time on the court.
It's exactly right. Jokic and Embiid going one-on-one in both paints was something to watch, without question. And as I mentioned, Serbia was just hot from the three-point land in this one, where they weren't in the first 2 games to build that big lead. It was, and you're right. I think Jokic did. This was to go to the gold. So maybe there was a little more intensity. Certainly not in the exhibition game. There wasn't going to be. In the first round game, there certainly needed to be some, but you could obviously still progress losing that game, because Serbia obviously did. This was the one, and there was a lot on it. And it's not like there wasn't other NBA stars on Serbia's team to help, but they USA going to remember this one for a while. It was cool to see the greats in the NBA and some of the greatest players of all time in the NBA, just like kids out there, just celebrating and enjoying the win. It was very cool to see.
It felt like nostalgia in real time in a way, because those are all obviously guys that are on the back nine in the home stretch of their career. Yep. They're some of the all-time greats from my adult lifetime in watching basketball. So I have such an affinity for these guys. And we talked about this last postseason. We dealt with the second round of the playoffs that didn't have these guys for the first time in like a decade. And we're all of a sudden having to come to grips with their basketball mortality. And now the Olympics put us back in the time machine and has watched them all be the most important players on this team. And to see Steph get that moment after a tournament that hasn't been great for him, I don't know. There's just something inside it that sort of like welds you up with the pride that can feel most like nostalgia of, hey, oh no, we're already going back to the good times. It's that meme from The Office. Wish someone would tell you you're in the good times while you're still in them. We got that last night. Like, we were still in the good times. And I thought Kevin Durant was really poignant on that. KD was talking after the fact. He was sitting with his mom after the game, talking about what this experience meant and what it's really been all about for them.
How can you not celebrate a win like that? Look at all our families in here. Look at this. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what this about. You know what I mean? We all come together as one on the other side of the world like this. starting USA chants, our section starting USA, man, it's special tonight, man. So we got to celebrate. I'm not going to act like it's not, you know what I mean? I know we want to win the gold, but we got to celebrate the small moments too. Guarantee you, everybody here, they'll never forget about this night. Everybody here going to remember this night for the rest of their lives. That's how special this is. And because we came back and we showed how together we were in that fourth quarter.
And Dad, Steve Kerr echoed that, saying this is one of the greatest basketball games he's ever been a part of. He was humbled to be there. But there was a great article in The Athletic by Sam Amick about the experience that these Olympic men's basketball players have had in particular, going over there as the biggest stars that were a part of this game in terms of their day job back home. And Steph Curry being on the boat at the beginning of the opening ceremony, having to tell these other athletes that wanted to come up and take pictures, like, no, I want to know about you too. I want to learn about why you're the best at what you're doing. And these experience of these guys getting to go and be around all these other athletes, getting to go be fans. Devin Booker talked about getting to go and watch the skateboarding. Kevin Durant waxed poetic about Simone Biles and how much she inspired him to keep going out and being himself. And as we say that right now, he said, I'm going to keep posting. It is like 5 o'clock. It's the middle of the night. He's been posting since 5:30 in the morning, clapping back at people on Twitter who are rooting at Serbia in this game. So we owe Simone Biles a debt of gratitude for a lot of things, but they all seem to, Dad, really, and maybe it's the benefit of age and the wisdom that comes with it, they all seem to really be appreciating what this particular Olympics is affording them in that opportunity to be together and experience this.
I think that's the word, appreciating it. Maybe it's because they're older in sports vernacular. They're older and coming to the end of their time, but to appreciate the other athletes and go to the other events that they don't get to see, and watching them and appreciating the younger athletes. There's some obviously in their 30s as well, but I agree. I think it's been a great all-around experience because we expected them to win. We didn't expect... we maybe expected a close game, but not to be down 17 and have to come back to where I think you're right. I think we'll remember this game more than the finals against France. I think we cover in that game. So I think like the 80 hockey team, you remember the semifinal game more against Russia than you do the final. So, but I do agree that these players are appreciating the other athletes out there. And normally they live in a bubbled world in the NBA in their sport when they travel and everything. But now they're out amongst the other athletes and going out and sitting out in public. I know that sounds weird to say, but just enjoying the other athletics.
Well, usually these guys are such big stars, they can't stay in the Olympic Village. There is somewhat of a separate situation for them. But I always said at Notre Dame when I was in college, my favorite part of being an athlete on campus was getting to go and watch my other friends at the height of their craft compete at an incredibly high level. And so to see these guys doing that on the Olympic stage is pretty damn cool. We're going to make Miracle on Eiffel happen. I feel good about that. But Emerson, let's look ahead to that gold medal round and figure out if we do think that the U.S. is going to cash it or trash it against France.
You got it, kid. Tall task standing in America's way. That'd be Victor Wembanyama and France. So Team USA will face France. This is a rematch tomorrow of the 2021 Olympic final here, guys, because France got here by getting revenge on Germany, 73-69. Taking a look at the odds in our Cash It or Trash It segment. Cash It or Trash It is presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you will hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. 16.5-point favorites currently on the DK Sportsbook. Cash it or trash it that the USA, Team USA, America's team, will cover this.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to cash it based on vibes, Dad. I don't want to be the guy betting the do not pass line at the Team USA men's hoops table, so I'm going to thrive on that. Though I do think France, especially in the last couple of games where, Bailey and the rest of Timberwolves fans cover your ears, but they've really found some life for this team since benching Rudy Gobert for large stretches. Yep. I get the court's just a little smaller. I get having 2 7-footers on the floor at the same time can be tough, especially when neither's a prolific shooter, but the proof is in the pudding, and Draymond Green's having a field day right now. So I just think overall, this France team is game. Gershon Yabusele was a ton of fun to watch. The guy's an absolute muscle ball out there throwing bows for France. But, Dad, I think Team USA survived that scare and is going to be very motivated. I think all the Steve Kerr slander is going to subside. I think we'll see Jason Tatum back in the rotation, and everyone's going to calm down about that aspect that they were so critical of coming off the win against Serbia.
Yeah, I'm not gonna steal the vibes here either. I'm gonna cash this one and say they cover. You mentioned Rudy Gobert. I mean, played just what I think 5 minutes in the Germany game and 3 something in the Canadian game. So he hasn't been seeing the floor. As we said, when Mark Few, the assistant coach of the U.S. team, came on and talked about how this basketball is just so different than the NBA. But I agree. I think the rotation will open up. And I think the U.S. will win comfortably in this game.
I would agree. Did you have a big problem with anything Steve Kerr did, Dan? I know that was the other big headline coming off this last game. And I feel like it's just kind of what we do in basketball when things are a little uncomfortable for us. Like, yeah, people are going to disagree with the Tatum stuff because he was obviously a pivotal player for Boston, but it just seemed like once again an opposing team got really hot from 3, and it took the U.S. a little while to adjust because they're not a team that's played together as much as the rest of these national teams.
I'm not going to say I know enough about a rotation with an all-star team. You know, it's one thing in an NBA all-star game to rotate for fun. It's another thing in the Olympics in basically some different basketball rules to rotate a bunch of stars in. So I can't even begin to say I'm qualified enough to talk about the rotation. Everybody forgets about Tyrese Halliburton not playing either. It's always Tatum. How Tatum doesn't play, but Tyrese doesn't play. Nobody says a word about that. All I know is the rotation stopped in the fourth quarter. It was just those 5 guys for just about the entire fourth quarter. So any kind of a thought or strategy on the rotation went out the window in the fourth quarter.
Listen, the crucible of competition is awesome because in those big moments, you find out who wants it and who you trust. And the answer was LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant last night as Team USA survived the scare against Serbia. And now we get to go watch them take on France in their home country, in their Olympics, getting to the final round. It's the first time in quite some time that you've had the home country represented in the gold medal round for men's hoops. So that's going to be great. But coming up next, if that wasn't enough for you yesterday, we got full-blown infighting for the Dallas Cowboys star players and brass next here on GoJo and Golic.
All right, by now you probably know Cowboys receiver CeeDee Lamb has held out of the team's training camp so far this summer while negotiating a new contract, and he seems to take lightly the thought of that holdout lasting a little bit longer. So yesterday, Jared Jones saying, I don't have any urgency to get it done. If you really see like the whole interview, it's a little bizarre. And then you had CeeDee Lamb quoting it on Twitter saying, LOL. Little social media drama here, gentlemen. But wait, there's more. Micah Parsons, yeah, retweeting it. Can you believe it? Ducks fly together. Also on social media, you had Lamb removing America's team from his Twitter bio. He realizes that team is in Jacksonville. Could he be angling to the Chiefs? Because Lamb and Hollywood Brown now both changing their Twitter headers to pics of each other at Oklahoma. OMG, GoJo, inject this into my veins. I love off-season drama, especially with the Cowboys, who still believe that they are relevant.
Modern wide receiver politicking, when they are upset, has become one of the purest art forms known to man. Last time on Dragon Ball Z, we've been talking about Brandon Ayuk, who famously posted video of him watching another team's practice tape on the phone with another team's quarterback, talking about they don't want me. And so now CeeDee Lamb taking it to the Twitter streets where he know all of us are going to see it. Dad, this has been incredible. And to Emerson's point, the larger interview when Jerry Jones was asked about the sense of urgency surrounding CeeDee Lamb. Listen to this quote. Jones said no when he was asked if he felt that sense of urgency. And when asked why, he said through laughter, I don't know why I said it. I don't know. I don't have a sense of urgency about getting it done. Put any reason you want. I was at Nobu 2 days ago. Give that as the reason. Whatever you put in there. Like, great flex, Jerry. We all know that you can eat at Nobu, but the rest of the situation remains baffling, Dad. So what did you take away from this? Does this hinder your belief at all that they're going to get him signed?
I'm amazed. I mean, you basically know the numbers it's going to take to get him done, right at Justin Jefferson, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but you basically know the money. I've given up on the Dak Prescott. Dak shouldn't sign an extension. Dak can be a true free agent next year because he can't be tagged. So he's living the life right now. I think Jerry Jones may be living on the thought that CeeDee Lamb is not going to pass up $18 million, which I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to pass up on $18 million and sit the season out. That's what he's supposed to make on the fifth-year player club option, $17.9 million. And then next year they can tag him. So, I mean, Jerry's probably thinking, I just have the system work for me. You know, we're the owners. We have the system working for us. We have the control over the players, unless obviously they're free agents. They have an option to not show up, but it would be without not giving up a lot of money. 18 mil this year, and then if it were to be franchise tag next year, it'd be a hell of a lot more than that, I'm sure, with the price of the wide receiver that has gone up. So Jerry's just probably thinking, you know what, the system works for us right now.
I agree with that. I think that's a lot more applicable in the Brandon Ayuk situation where we're talking about a trade being on the table and it being pointed out over and over again. The 49ers don't have to do anything. Like, I'm seeing all this stuff about how the Pittsburgh package, they don't want to include a player. And if you're the Niners and you're not getting a player back, there's no reason for you to do this because, as many people have pointed out, I heard Daniel Jeremiah mention on the NFL Network last night before the preseason game, there isn't a draft between now and the season. So there's no incentive for you as the 49ers to do this for anything less than a player who's going to help you in the here and now, because that's what you're concerned about this year. For this situation with CeeDee Lamb, it is not going to get to that point. They are going to pay him. Like our buddy David Hellman, I trust a lot when it comes to the prognostications around the Cowboys. And if he believes CeeDee's ultimately going to get paid, because that's what we tend to see with the Cowboys, right? It's extremely uncomfortable for these players, and then eventually they get paid. We saw this most recently with Zach Martin, who is a Cowboys Ring of Honor guy, day one, a walk-in Hall of Famer. And even he had to go and hold out in training camp, something that is so antithetical to his approach to football. He was forced to do because this organization plays hardball in the weirdest ways possible with the stars that it claims to love. And so I think CeeDee is going to get paid here, Dad. But again, this to me is more about the work environment that you create for your players in an organization where you seem to be losing in the margins in pivotal moments. Micah Parsons retweeting this is a reminder that when you do things like this to your stars in the locker room, people notice that stuff. And when they notice that stuff and are so disenfranchised or disenchanted with management, that ends up seeping into the way they think about a lot there. And I have to imagine that affects that big C word culture that we always talk about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think there's just thoughts on two sides. There's thoughts on the player side of, if it's going to get done, let's get it done. And there's thought on the owner side of Jerry Jones that said, we'll get it done in due time because, again, I have the upper hand of when this can get done because I know you guys aren't going to sit. But it can bring animosity, and it will come full circle with Dak Prescott, who can be an unrestricted free agent. And now you're starting over again at the quarterback position because he is going to get offered a boatload of money by teams. And if Jerry were to sign him, it would be for more than what he would sign him for on the extension this year, as long as Dak has a good year. He's betting on himself. So unless you can be free like Dak can, the team, and we as former players always want the players to have an advantage. But the player's only advantage is to sit out and not make $14 million if you're Brandon Ayuk, $18 million if you're CeeDee Lamb. And players just aren't going to do that.
I think it's one of those things where I understand the dynamic. They're never going to have the kind of power that I actually want. But, Dad, you know this as well as I do. It's real easy inside the building. The players are ultimately going to decide how this reflects on the Cowboys. But we've seen, historically, this is a Jerry Jones problem. Since the triplets in the 90s, when the mediocrity spans this long of a time, it's a Jerry Jones problem. And creating a culture like this where stars have to keep looking over their shoulder, wondering if you're going to pay them and seeing how it goes for their teammates there. But, I mean, you've seen plenty of locker rooms and been around plenty of locker rooms, I'm sure, where it can go two ways. You can either have a team that plays for everybody in the building because they believe we're all in this together, or you can have a team that says, hey, we're going to stick it to management because we know they don't actually give a bleep about us. And so we're going to go out there and do this for the guys in the huddle, the guys in the locker room, the guys in the meeting room with us every day. And we've seen plenty of adversarial relationships like that. And I just feel like creating that unnecessarily for players where it's obvious. Brandon Ayuk might be a little complicated. CeeDee Lamb is obvious. And Stephen Jones went on the Doomsday podcast with Ed Werder and was talking about how, well, we had to pay Zach last year and we have all these good team problems. Well, you need better good team solutions than what you found because not everybody makes it look this hard.
No, I agree with that. But what you said, think about what you said, that play, and it's not always the atmosphere that you want. But when you say players band together to play against management and play well, management's going to think, hey, they're going to play well. You know, they may not like us, but they're going to play well. You know, and they may not care about the dynamic of player and management. I'm just trying to get in the head of what Dallas is doing. But they're still going to get the best out of their players, even if their players are saying, screw management, we're going to show them by playing well. And management's going to sit back and say, all right, we got a team that's playing well and a team that's putting forth the effort, even if it's against us. Again, not the relationship that you want, but it's all about wins. It's all about wins, and it's about control. And as we continue to say,
wins, and they're faking being all in Dallas while they refuse to pay the guys that are most important to the team. Like, they got to be looking around at some point going, are you going to do anything as they get set to go out here in the backdrop of, hey, Dak Prescott looked great in practice the other day. It seems like he's still pretty dialed in, but the front office has chosen to do next to nothing this entire offseason.
I agree with all of that, but they have control over all the players except for Dak Prescott. And at the end of the day, that's what they have as their advantage. They have control over the players, again, except for Dak, who is in a very, very rare position of not being able to be franchised.
God, I hope Dak drills them. It would bring me so much joy.
Oh, yes.
Coming up next,
yes,
we get to head into the rest of training camp and talk to a guy that's out there in the heat right now with a fresh new bag of money. Minnesota Vikings left tackle Christian Darrisaw joins us next to talk about the upcoming season here on GoJo and Golic.
All right, Vikings Raiders tonight giving Sam Darnold his first chance to show that he deserves to be Minnesota's first-string quarterback. Coach Kevin O'Connell telling reporters yesterday the 7-year veteran will start the preseason opener against Las Vegas. J.J. McCarthy will follow. Jaron Hall will finish the game. O'Connell said majority of players will play in week 1 of the preseason. So the guy's catching up with a member of the Minnesota squad to talk about the latest from Vikings camp.
Love when we can add a little bit of beef to the show during training camp. Nice enough to head out to Minnesota and check in with Christian Darrisaw, left tackle for the Minnesota Vikings. Christian, how are you? Good morning. Thanks for giving us some of your time, man.
Morning, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing great.
I can imagine being one of the guys walking into training camp with the fresh new bag has to feel nice. You know, a richly deserved extension. Congratulations on that. I am curious, though, does it feel different walking into camp knowing you've got that security of the deal already taken care of this year?
Oh, man, it really hasn't. It really hasn't fully hit me yet. That long-term thing has been locked down. But no, it's definitely a great feeling. Once the Vikings and my team, they came together, they made it happen. It was a surreal moment for me, my family. Just being set in stone here for the next 6 years. I couldn't actually be a part of a better organization than this Minnesota Vikings. So yeah, I love it.
Go back to 2021 when you're a rookie, albeit a first-round draft pick, so there's certainly some security in being a first-round draft pick, but just a rookie as opposed going into your fourth year now, the difference in attitude going into training camp.
Man, it's night and day. I feel like coming in as a rookie, you're still trying to figure yourself out because coming out of college, being there for 3 years, 4 years, however it may be, you're kind of like the big dog and everyone's looking up at you. and now you're coming into a new locker room, high expectations put on you from the jump. So just really trying to figure yourself out, trying to get your routines down, just trying to become the player you want to become. And I feel like it's night and day for me. I learned a lot of things in these past 3 years, and having like a good group of guys around me, especially Brian O'Neill, him being a top right tackle in the game, and me coming in at left tackle, him helping me every step of the way to get me to where I'm at now. I couldn't actually be in a better situation.
It's an awesome group you guys have up front. It's a young group that's gotten the chance to really grow together. For you personally and for that unit, what are you working on now? We know you still got plenty of time before the season, but what have you guys really tried to focus on up front for this year?
I really like little things like communication, just really like just knowing the fronts and just this ID and everything. Just staying on top of it because if we're all on the same page, or at least we're all doing the same things together. So that's really like the biggest thing I would say right now is us communicating and just working together to be the best unit we can be this year.
Take people down onto the field with you in dealing now with a different quarterback. You've had Kirk Cousins for a number of years. Now you have Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy, just dealing with, from the whole offensive line standpoint, dealing with the different quarterback than you're used to.
Oh, man. We try to take that weight on our shoulders, just especially like you said, we had Kirk. Them guys had Kirk since they've been here, and I had Kirk since I've been here these past few years. And kind of getting a new guy, we kind of want to make it easy on him. So we know if all five of us are doing our job, that'll take a lot of pressure off of him, just keep everything out of his face. But we know sometimes things are going to happen. But those two guys have been working their tails off this whole training camp, and I'm excited for both of them.
We mentioned before you were a first-round rookie coming in at one point for the Vikings. We know you guys have two of them, but for J.J. McCarthy, who's on the side of the ball with you, what have you seen from him in the early goings here as far as what he's been able to show you both on and off the field as a teammate?
Man, I love the way he carries himself off the field and on the field, man. He's all about his business. He can have fun, too, with it. Got that swagger to him, man. So I'm really excited for him and his career, the next steps for him to take. But no, man, he's been looking great. So it's gonna be exciting to see how everything plays out.
How do you go about, again, from your rookie year to now, you go about, you guys play the Raiders, I believe, in your first preseason game. When you're a rookie, you're just looking to get reps and play and get some action. How about now? Is you waiting to hear from the coach, hey, you're sitting out this game, or you're not going to play too much in this game, and kind of waiting to hear those words from the coach?
Yeah, man, whatever KO and the staff puts together, I know their plan is always going to be the best interest for us guys, especially it's like the main starters. So whatever KO asks of us, we're gonna go out there and do. No hesitation. So whatever, if we get the green light or the red light, it's gonna be fun regardless.
There we go. The green light or the red light. Let's talk about Kevin O'Connell. It's your fourth year in the league, your third year with him. How would you describe him as a leader for this team?
Man, we love him. I feel like since the first day he's got here, we all been bought in, and it's really been exciting just to play for a guy like that. Just how smart he is from the offensive side, and just the things that he's able to do, and just like the key pieces that we got on this team from an offensive standpoint and defensive standpoint. But just from an offensive standpoint, just the way that he's able to draw up these plays, man, and get jets open, and just T.J. Hockenson, and now we added Aaron Jones to the backfield. So it's going to be a fun year, man, and I can't wait to see everything that we really open up this year.
So what's the thought for the year? What's the goal for the year in a division where Detroit ran it last year? Chicago gets the number one pick in the draft and a quarterback, and a lot is talked about, and Jordan Love's new deal in Green Bay, a lot is talked about. What's your guys' focus as far as the year in the division?
Man, it's always year in and year out to win a division. It always starts there, and then after that, you get more games. You get 1 week at a time after that point. But yeah, we just got to take this thing a week at a time. It's not going to be easy, but we're ready. And whatever challenges we may face, I feel like this team we're so well bonded and connected, man. It's going to be an exciting year, and we're gonna wake a lot of people up for sure.
Why do you think Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the league? He's paid like it, but it seems like we've really set him off on the side in his own category for a bit. So as someone that sees him day in and day out, what does separate him from the pack?
Man, he's special. It's crazy to see what he does week in and week out, but his preparation, I feel like is the biggest key for him. And And for a guy like himself, man, being one of the best players in the league since he came into the game, man, it's crazy to be a part of it. Especially being teammates with him. Man, he's all about his business, like I said. And his preparation week in and week out is top tier.
Yeah, I know JJ is on your side of the ball. How about a guy like Dallas Turner? I don't know if you've gone against him in one-on-ones or how he's looked as a young prospect in the league.
Dallas has a huge potential, man. And his game is growing since he first got here in OTAs to now in training camp. And I'm excited for him as well. He's definitely been giving me a little challenges for sure, but we're getting each other better. But I'm excited for him, man. I'm excited for Dallas.
Is that a guy, especially since, iron sharpening iron, you guys go against each other on the field, but do you talk with him after? How much do you go about, and especially at this point as one of the more experienced leaders on this team, a guy who does have that contract of trying to also give him some game as you guys are working through reps?
For sure. I feel like from the whole defensive line standpoint and the offensive line, any questions that we got for each other, we can go up and ask each other, like, so why did you do this here? Like, what made you think this? And things like that. Just giving him like little game. But especially for Dallas, man, we get off the practice field. Yeah, his locker is not too far from mine, so we chopping it up just about little things and just how he can improve his game and what I'm seeing and what he's seeing from me. So no, the sky's the limit for him.
So another difference of your rookie year and now is you don't have to do anything at training camp because you're not a rookie anymore. What are the rookies having to do as far as singing or standing up and doing whatever they have to do?
Yeah, so that's really like the biggest thing. So each night after practice, one rookie will go up and just sing before the team meeting starts. But other than that, we have when we have fans here, the offensive line, we have our rookies go do the Skol chant, turn the crowd up before practice gets started and stuff like that, hit the gritty. But yeah, it's not too brutal at all.
Have we had any highlights as far as song choice or best singers that you guys have had so far, the rookies?
JJ.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
What did he do?
Old school. I think it was Tupac or Biggie. Well, he went old. It was surprising. It shocked the whole room. But he knew word for word.
Wow.
And needed no help. Like he rocked. Yeah, he did his thing.
Wow. All right, there we go. Try and put JJ McCarthy in a box at your own risk, apparently. This guy's got some layers to him. Good to know. Good for and going up there and nailing it confidently goes a long way for the rest of the group. So I'm happy to hear that from JJ's standpoint there. Christian, we can't thank you enough for the time, man. Congratulations on the deal. Best of luck, and hopefully everything goes well for you this season.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me on.
It is time for the Liquid IV Olympic recap. If hydrating were an Olympic sport, you would win the gold. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code GOJO at checkout. That's code GOJO at checkout. All right, the Olympic medal count currently, the USA leads by a lot, 103 total, tied for the most golds currently at this Olympic Games, 30, tied with China. Australia, down under, mate, at 18. Let's talk about Noah Lyles right now, though, because this American sprinter, very good, has confirmed, though, that he has tested positive for COVID-19 earlier this week, ran in yesterday's 200-meter race anyway, and that's his signature event. Took home bronze in that one. Lyles laid down on the track immediately after crossing the finish line. He was helped off the track by medical personnel in a wheelchair. Went Paul Pierce on all of us. Here's what Lyles told NBC about how he... All right, couldn't be more proud there of bronze. So he's going to be forced to miss the 4x100 relay due to COVID here, Gojo. So is it, I guess, bigger story that he was able to go out there and claim bronze running while battling COVID, or is it a bigger story that this is his event here? This is his bread and butter, and he couldn't claim gold?
I think it's just more unfortunate timing than anything else, Dad. Like, I think that's where I ultimately land on this is Noah Lyles' signature event. He came into this Olympics, remember, being the 200-meter favorite. The 100-meter was going to be one that was more in question, where now he wins, right. He gets the fastest man alive title and all those things that come from it. And running the double, running both the 100 and the 200-meter, is a difficult feat. The last time it was done was Usain freaking Bolt, who I think has done it 3 times. So it's rarefied air, and it's already difficult enough on its own to do physically. We know some of the cardiovascular restraints, especially if he said it's sounded like, and I don't want to speculate too much, but him saying he felt terrible sounds like he was symptomatic then for this, and we know the way it can affect you in a respiratory sense. So more just unfortunate that it would happen at this time when he was going into this event as a guy who is trying to be the face of track and field for the U.S.
Yeah, I would say that's a good word, unfortunate timing of this. You know, in a race that's decided by hundreds, sometimes thousands of a second, you could see by being off just a little bit is going to cost you. Even though he was a favorite in this, he wasn't the favorite in it like CeeDee McLaughlin-Lavroni was the favorite in the 400 hurdles, which we'll get to. So he's the favorite, but not going to blow everybody out. So this can have an effect. And it had an effect to bronze, to where he felt there was a disappointment in Tokyo, to not as more, I guess, humbling here that the fact that he would be testing positive for COVID and couldn't be at his best, as opposed to just the disappointment of 21. So he tried to push through it. He didn't break any of the rules. He followed the protocols and was allowed to race. It was at his discretion, so I don't blame him for trying. I mean, hell, you train for that. I mean, you work for that. You know you're going to give it a shot. But in a race that's that quick and that close, to think that it wouldn't have some effect, I think would be a foolish thought.
Yeah, considering how infrequent the Olympic opportunities are, like if you're a person that has a disagreement with the fact that their policies allowed him to be out there at all with this, then go right ahead. That's your prerogative. But purely from an athlete standpoint, Dad, if it was at this juncture and you're at the Olympics and you've got the shot at this event that's supposed to be your thing, I think every one of us would have run that. Like you go out there, and I understand we know the effects of COVID-19 and what it can have on the heart sometimes, and all these different things that we've seen over the last number of years since the pandemic. But with that opportunity, I think most anyone that's ever laced them up in a high-level competition setting would have gone out there and would have tried to give it their all the way he did. And like him winning bronze in those circumstances is somewhat impressive to me. But overall, I just walk away feeling certainly disappointed for us, because what a unique opportunity for USA track and field to puff out their chests in a way they already can. We've had a bunch of exemplary performers, but it would have been cool to see someone pull off the double wearing red, white, and blue, knowing that Noah Lyles was the one expected to do that.
Yeah, and he's loud, he's boisterous, he's arrogant, so I'm sure there were those that didn't mind seeing him get tapped down a bit, especially the winner of the race.
I was going to say, Tobogo from Botswana had a lot to say on the microphone after this about the idea of if he could be the face of track and field, and his answer, it spells it out pretty plainly.
I think for me, I can't be the face of athletics because I'm not an arrogant or a loud person like Noah. So I believe Noah is the face of athletics.
I mean, Dad, listen, we've seen Noah Lyles has talked crap to his own teammates and teammates.
Yes.
You know, it's an individual sport, but the other runners from the U.S., like everybody can get it with him. And so obviously it's not going to endear you to the competition, but that's the double-edged sword of the Bleep Talkers credo is, if you're going to dish it out, eventually it's going to come back at you. And I'd imagine no one is more comfortable or familiar with that than Noah Lyles himself. That's the game.
Yeah. Yeah, when you talk the talk, and he lost to Tobago in the semifinals, so I'm sure there are those that are thinking maybe this is just an excuse to why he didn't win. When he kind of put himself in that position with how loud and, as Tobago said, how arrogant that he can be. But if he truly tested positive for COVID, I mean, you have to believe that had an effect on the race. You have to believe that.
I would be stunned if it didn't. And listen, I get it. I was someone that was never good enough at what I did to feel comfortable going out there and talking smack. You and I have both mentioned we were usually winded while all of that was going on. And so I always am kind of in awe of the people that can go out there and do it well and are comfortable wearing that target on their back. So he had a close one that unfortunately didn't go his way, Dad. But if you're looking for a big slice of U.S. dominance, then allow me to offer you up some Sydney McLaughlin-Lavroni yesterday, who dominated in the way that we all expected in the 400-meter hurdles. Her time of 50.37 Thursday. She defended her Olympic title. She once again bested her own world record and just continues to be the standard bearer in this event.
6 times she's broken the world record in the last amount of times she's run the race. It's been ridiculous what she's done. And Femke Bol, that was supposed to be the race with those two. And Sydney on that last turn, I mean, just found it. Now, Femke Bol said she felt, she had lactic acid buildup and that hurt her. But McLaughlin-Lavroni, she just took off. And I mean, just dominated to the fact, and give it up to Anna Cockrell. She took silver. She ended up beating Femke as well. Yeah. So it was a U.S. gold and silver. But what Lavroni has done, I mean, just the sheer dominance in this event and she just runs it so smoothly. She makes it look so damn easy when we know it's not. We know it's not that easy, but she makes it look that easy.
Yeah, it was true. We talked about the other day when we saw the men's, I think it was 400 meter or 800 with the comeback win, where every bit of the strain was on display, where we saw just how difficult that task was. With Sydney, I remember before when she qualified for the Olympic Games, there was the stat that her time in qualifying would have made the Olympics in the 400 meters sans hurdles. So this with the hurdles, it has been so effortless for her for so long, and she continues to drill down on that. So congratulations to her for adding to the gold medal count in the Olympics for the U.S. and continuing what's been a pretty impressive run from USA track and field overall. Again, the disappointment and unfortunate timing of the Noah Lyles sickness aside. Coming up next, do you want a sickness? College football season's getting ready to get started. How about that? And how are we going to celebrate it? None other than Paul Finebaum going to join us from ESPN to talk about all the big headlines in the upcoming season next on GoJo and Golic. fun when we get to catch up with some of our former teammates here, and one of my personal favorites dropping by today, Paul Finebaum. Obviously, you guys know him from the Paul Finebaum Show on the SEC Network, 3 to 7 Eastern every day. One of the foremost college football pundits out there. And Paul, I'd imagine one of the happiest men on earth this week, considering you have gotten to go after both Jim Harbaugh and the NCAA in the same week. So life is pretty good.
Yeah, no, Mike, I'm conflicted because I hate both equally, and when I'm forced to defend Harbaugh, it is among the most painful things in my life. So it's a mixed bag, but I've enjoyed the week. Thank you for asking.
I bet you have. So let's take the NCAA part of it. While the Harbaugh stuff is fun to mess around with, at the end of the day, it's not going to affect Michigan. He's in the pros now, so his penalty is not going to affect him in college because he's not there, or Michigan. So how about the potential for Michigan discipline coming from the Connor Stallion situation? What would you expect to happen?
Yeah, Mike, I think the real issue is Sharon Moore, and I don't think they'll go that hard on him. And I know that may be contradictory considering what they're throwing at Harbaugh for the previous incident. But I felt last year when the Big Ten suspended Harbaugh for 3 games, they were putting a ceiling on what anyone really could do, even though the two are not necessarily connected. So I think it could be a suspension, but in terms of more punitive damages like scholarships and postseason, I just don't see it.
Has this changed any of the way that you already viewed their championship from last year?
As much as I would love to say it was tainted and they ought to strip it, I can't go that far. I just felt like at the end they were the best team, Mike. I think they proved that, and I just need more. I would need evidence to say, okay, because of Connor Stallions and all this, where was the advantage? And I just never saw it. Now, I'm not an Ohio State fan either, so maybe I'm missing something. But I think that really is, if it was so obvious in 1 game or 2 games that they turned. But I mean, most of their games were pretty convincing.
Yeah, and maybe we'll wait and learn something from the Netflix docuseries with Connor. Oh wait, no, we won't. We won't learn anything. Never mind. Sorry, I brought that up. All right, let's kind of look at the overview of the college football landscape. Which team joining a conference, i.e., Oregon, Texas, Oklahoma, or any other Pac-12, do you think will fare best in their new conference?
I'd probably go with Oregon. I think this is one of the more seamless transitions I've ever seen. And I had the opportunity Wednesday of this week to interview Dan Lanning, and just listening to him talk. I mean, the man is just exudes with confidence. Some of it's Dylan Gabriel. Some of it's the fact that he has Ohio State at home. I mean, I know I live and working at the SEC Network, guys, but to me, the biggest game of the year in college football is Oregon at Ohio State. I think so much is on the line there. And it's not an eliminator, but it's a definer of programs. So I think after that, it's obviously Texas. I mean, they are positioned incredibly well after years in the wilderness. Sarkisian is the right guy. And the thing he was bragging the most about at SEC Media Days was depth. And I think both of you understand this better than most. To get to the end of the playoffs, you're going to need depth because this is not your typical 13, 14 game season. I mean, this could go 16, 17, and that's going to be hard to do with a college roster.
No, there's no doubt. That's probably the biggest factor going into this season. I couldn't agree more on that front there. Dan Lanning, though, a guy that's got those SEC ties, and obviously was a name that a lot of people started throwing around when Nick Saban decided to call it a career in Alabama. Instead, Kalen DeBoer lands there from Washington. So, Paul, from what you've heard between, talking to people, getting to interview people, obviously you have some of my favorite callers on planet Earth in your show. How does the Alabama fan base sort of view Kalen DeBoer heading into his first season at the helm?
I don't want to sound like a Wall Street analyst, but I think they're overvaluing him a little bit. And it's nothing against him. I'll spare you guys the resume. Everyone knows it's impeccable. But I've watched a lot. It's a little bit like back in the day, maybe not quite as much now, but a Notre Dame loss on a Monday and the whole country is beside itself. It's the same way in Alabama, except it's a little more current because of Saban having just left. And I don't think Kalen DeBoer's prepared for that. I don't care how many wins he's had. A Monday in Alabama after an unexpected loss. Now, I'm not saying losing to Georgia, which wouldn't be a shock, but let's say they got upset at Madison the third week of the season. I mean, I've seen this. I've made a career out of this, guys, and nobody shows mercy. And where I'm sitting right now would probably be the toughest place for his family to tune into. And I know that may not translate directly to his football team, but there is a trickle down effect, and especially if he let's say he lost to Wisconsin and then loses to Georgia 2 weeks later. He's out of mulligans, and the margin of error getting in the playoff and out of the playoff has evaporated. And quite frankly, I don't think fans expect a championship this year, but they certainly expect a playoff appearance.
Yeah, that's the thing. More schools expect a playoff appearance with the 7 at large and the 5 conference chaps. And certainly in the SEC, you get an understanding of what losses mean more than I think any other conference. That said, in the SEC, is Georgia, in your mind, clearly at the top, or do they have some maybe offensive question marks than we think?
I think they get a little overvalued because right now they are the premier program. A lot of it is recruiting. I mean, I'm a little concerned about both sides. I mean, Carson Beck is there's no question that he's among the best quarterbacks. But you know, how many other weapons do they have? I mean, they're replacing Brock Bowers, who single-handedly won them countless games. And I might argue if Brock Bowers had not been injured in, of all games, the Vanderbilt game, Georgia would have beaten Alabama, and we might not be talking about vacating Jim Harbaugh's national championship. And Mike, I'm concerned about their defense. I mean, you go back 2 years ago to that draft. I mean, it was an endless stream of players, you know, some that really weren't even well known that were at the top of the draft. They don't have that right now. I mean, they have good players. Do they have defining difference makers? And I'm a little concerned about that. And, you know, their schedule, okay, let's be honest. It's brutal. And it's not even the Texas game. It's not even the trip to Alabama. How about a trip to Ole Miss? A team that is better than it's been in 50 or 60 years. They could lose all 3 of those.
You mentioned Ole Miss. You and Lane Kiffin had a very, we'll call it fun moment at SEC Media Days on set together. You've obviously seen so much of his career development as a head coach. Do you think he's in a place now where he's got Ole Miss not just ready to be a tough out or a tough road game for people, but a team that can actually contend for an SEC title and the college football playoff title?
Well, the only question I have, not trying to start another food fight with Lane, is Lane Kiffin. And I don't. At some point, he's going to have to win that big game. He allowed Nick Saban to beat him a couple of times when he shouldn't have. That's probably the one I would point to the most. He's done everything else other than slay Saban. And I mean, he's got a really good quarterback. He's got a couple of defensive players, one from Texas A&M that was literally all world. And I think that's going to help him. And you know, his schedule is probably manageable, where a couple of schools, as I mentioned in the SEC, that the schedules are going to eat them up.
How much do you buy into the Brian Kelly third year at the program? Cincinnati, big third year. Notre Dame, monster third year, making it to the title game undefeated, and now his third year at LSU.
You know, Mike, I don't see any reason why they should be that great this year. I mean, I think they're good, but I mean, that defense last year was just patently embarrassing, and I admire Brian a great deal, but I blame him. I mean, he's the one that chose their coordinator. He stuck with another assistant that, frankly, I didn't understand what he was doing. I mean, for the life of me, I've yet to figure out how they've handled Harold Perkins, who is just a defining player. And they look like they just said, how can we screw this guy up and lose 4 games? So I think Brian Kelly has to get by the first game. I mean, I know that sounds like I'm just graduating from school and giving you the most obvious take in the world. But if he doesn't, suddenly the pressure is going to intensify. And we have a couple of Notre Dame fans who call our show every day. And I don't think. I mean, they are laying in wait for a misstep from Brian Kelly. I know you guys have no idea what I'm talking about there.
No, none at all. That would never be our fan base petty enough to go that route. I, for one, am shocked. I mean, while we're on the subject, Paul, listen, Notre Dame obviously gets talked about a lot. You've had a lot of opinions on Notre Dame over the years. As you look at Marcus Freeman in year 3 in South Bend and the team that they've got together right now, how much are you buying into the Irish this season, especially starting the year on the road at Kyle Field at Texas A&M?
I'm buying pretty heavily because I think the E&M game. I mean, I don't understand the hype for A&M. And listen, I've been to Kyle Field. Okay, we all get it. It's a fantastic arena, but I don't think the team is that great. So I mean, I like Notre Dame in that game, and I think they managed the season pretty well. They'll have to work hard not to make the playoffs with that schedule.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. How much turmoil do you think the ACC is in with Clemson and Florida State suing their own conference?
It's a bad look, and I don't really understand their end game. I guess they're hoping for a settlement, but I'm not sure the ACC can afford to do that. And quite frankly, living in the SEC country, there's no appetite for those two. Florida State would be attractive on many levels, but the fact that they literally, threw this temper tantrum and never stopped has really hurt them in the eyes of the people that matter. And Clemson, he's just not that great either. I mean, I don't want to just beat the drum on top of Dabo Swinney's head because we all know what he's done. And if he never won another game, he's gone to 4 national championship games and 5 playoffs and 2 titles. That puts him ahead of almost everyone else. But he has made so many mistakes in dealing with the new world that I think Clemson is an okay program right now, but by no means elite. As far as can they contain it in the ACC? I know that SEC people, in that perfect world would like North Carolina. Where they went after that is a lot of people think it's Virginia, which doesn't make sense from a football standpoint. But remember, college presidents make these decisions, not people that actually understand the game like you two.
It is a great reminder, you're right, that we all talk about this stuff and then they get into rooms and actually decide what's going to happen and who's going to move where. And it's how we've wound up in the situation that we're in now. Paul, I want to zoom out quickly and go west. I know the other day, I believe it was on First Take, you had talked about Lincoln Riley's future at USC and the potential for maybe someone like Deion Sanders to be a name targeted there. I'm curious for you, though. In the last couple of days, there was the reporting from the folks over at Athlon Sports about the culture around Deion's program based on the testimony of some ex-players. Does that give you any more concern about not only Deion's tenure at Colorado, but just the culture that he brings around programs in general right now?
Well, it should, and some pretty enlightening reporting. I don't want to back away from anything I've ever said, but it was the first week of the SEC media days, and you guys have been there both. You just start throwing things up against the wall, and on Lincoln Riley, I probably got a little carried away. I mean, I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach, and I think his record in big games speaks for itself. I just threw Deion out there, and that was prior to the reporting. I'm just not impressed with what he's done. And I mean, it all started. I started talking about the relevancy of Colorado, and his son got very upset and came after me, and so did others. And my point is, it's about Deion Sanders. It's not about Colorado. Colorado is worthless. They don't mean anything in the world of college football. Deion does, and he needs to show something. Unless he does, no, I wouldn't suggest anybody like USC hires him. But in the world we live in, guys, in the media world that you've both been part of a long time, most of that doesn't matter. It's how much conversation can you create? And in LA, nobody could create more conversation than Deion Sanders.
But you're right. Colorado is not the story. It's Dion, and Dion could be a shooting star as far as getting pub for that school and then disappearing if they don't play well, which I don't think many people expect to play well. Speaking of playing well, we are in a 12-team playoff for the first time, and Mike and I talked about this the other day, trying to gauge how many SEC teams we think. We know obviously there'll be a conference champ, but how many other teams will take up the 7 at-large bids, do you think?
Mike, I would conservatively go with 3. I'm not bold enough to go with 4 because I just think that there's so many variables. But there's a couple of games I think that will determine whether a Tennessee or an Alabama get in, or you mentioned LSU a few minutes ago, or Ole Miss. So I think if things go well, they could get 4. But I think it's going to come down to the Big Ten or the SEC in terms of getting 4. If Oregon, Ohio State, if Penn State, survives its usual 10-2 season, they'll probably get in. And then does Michigan pull an upset or two? Does somebody come out of nowhere? But I think if I had to give you a number in Vegas, I'd say 3.2. But it's a little more than 3. But by no means can I say 4.
There we go. Well, it's certainly, I think, where a lot of people think could be the conference with the most, because they have been the story and the premier conference of the college football playoff through the first decade, and it shows no signs of slowing down now as they add Texas and Oklahoma and keep things moving here. Paul, I could sit here and talk to you all day, man. It gets me so fired up for college football season, but just in general, great to see you again, my friend. Always a pleasure, and we really appreciate you giving us some time.
The pleasure was mine. I sincerely miss seeing both of you all the time, and let's do this again. I had a blast.
The stunning upset of the century to me is that Paul Finebaum had his take that he believes 3 SEC teams will make the college football playoff. I figured, Paul, that just goes to show you what first take can do to people when it comes to revving up the hot take engine. Because a sensible Paul Finebaum looked out at the current landscape and said, you know what, we're not really sure how this is going to fit yet. Some of these teams do have brutal schedules. 3 seems like the magic number. Quite honestly, Dad, that's probably the safest bet, to say, hey, whatever 2 teams make the SEC championship, and then a third will be included in a year where between the SEC, a hyper-competitive Big Ten, and the fact that you're going to have the 2 automatic bids from other conferences and then the group of 5 champion probably makes sense.
Yeah, I think he wanted to say 4. I think he was so tempted to say 4 and go down that road, but I do believe he played it a little safe. So it's a new era of ball of teams that, when you get that second loss, you think you're out of it. Now you're not. Now there'll be plenty of 2-loss teams that make it. So the season just gets longer for more teams. So I'm fine with it. They're already talking in 2 years going to 16 teams, but let's do the 12-team thing first. But I like it. I like the fact it opens it up to more.
Yeah, I looking at the SEC in particular, and we talked about Brian Kelly and LSU and the challenge they face in year 3. With the turnover on the coaching staff, trying to finally get that defense online. And I think for Brian Kelly, not waiting as long as maybe his counterpart in Lincoln Riley has to go and change up what you're doing on the defensive side of the ball could prove to be a pretty prescient move. But Dad, you look at them, a team like Missouri that's got a bunch of potential coming off a season last year where not only do they return with their starting quarterback and one of the best wide receivers in college football, defense losing some key parts, but should still be pretty good. But I look at them, Tennessee, Oklahoma, LSU, and even Texas A&M. Like, there's part of me that I understand Paul doesn't love the roster there necessarily. A lot of it's a bet on Connor Wegman coming and being this NFL caliber quarterback that friends of ours like Trevor Sycamore who've been on this show think he could be. But man, just seeing what Mike Elko was able to do in such a short time with the talent at Duke and knowing what's still under the hood at Texas A&M, if they get through week 1 and it was a close game, even if they manage to pull off the win, which I think they're a favorite right now, just a minor favorite after the Notre Dame injury news along the offensive line, anything seems possible with that team and the talent and coaching there.
Yeah, it definitely does, but you hope they start out 0-1. And you also, at least Notre Dame fans do, and the SEC, it's also about beating each other up, right? I mean, if you go through a murderer's row schedule and you beat each other up, that could knock a couple teams out of the running.
Certainly. Lots to look forward to a college football season. But coming up next, let's look at some of our sweet sons of college football that made their way into the loving arms of NFL fans last night. Next. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Our thanks to Paul Finebaum for joining us in the last segment, talking a little bit of college ball. But, Dad, preseason football is true sickos territory. Freaks like me who love to sit around and watch all 4 quarters of games, like the ones we had last night with the Patriots and Panthers playing. The Patriots get a 17-3 win. And the Giants and Lions after a week full of training camp fights. The Giants, by the way, 14-3 win for them if you're the kind of person that keeps track or gambles on those things. But, Dad, it's kind of fun because for especially me who covers college football for the bulk of my job as an analyst, to get to watch the guys that we have all enjoyed for 2, 3, 4 years in college, I guess at least 3 years in college, go and make their way to the NFL stage where NFL fans get to meet them anew. A lot of people that maybe don't watch the college game. And last night was the zenith of that. The Joe Milton experience has now hit the NFL streets. Joe Milton, rookie quarterback, 6th-round draft pick for the New England Patriots out of Tennessee by way of Michigan, got out there and did not disappoint. Dad, what did you take away from last night as we saw a bunch of these young quarterbacks, but especially Joe Milton, go out there and shine in some limited preseason action?
Well, I think it's when the Patriot fans see a quarterback that can run because they had a quarterback for so long, greatest of all time, was a pocket guy. But remember Malik Cunningham last year running around, exciting the crowd. Now Joe Milton rolling right, coming back left and having a long run. Also the gun arm that he has as well. There's excitement that will be tempered over time. It's, again, the first preseason game. But you see a flash, and you knew he had the strong arm, and you knew he could move. So I just think it's something that New England Patriot fans aren't used to seeing.
They did get to see their actual first-round pick Drake May for a very limited amount of time. I think he had, 11 snaps in that game over the course of like 1 or 2 series. He had a couple of short passes, one attempt downfield that hit the receiver in the hands, but was a bit high. Overall, Dad looked fine. There was really nothing to take away from the performance out there. He basically went out, ran the offense, handed it off, and got to cut it loose a couple of times, but wasn't out there long enough for me to feel like I could draw any conclusion. I don't know about you.
No, he had 7 plays, and 1 was a penalty. 2 of the passes, or the 3 passes, were screen passes. There wasn't a whole lot to be said. And Gerard Mayo talked about him not playing more because he wanted him to play behind the first offensive line. Remember, a lot of starters weren't playing in these games. The whole Carolina defense, sans for one person, didn't play in this game. So it's a real mixed bag of talent out on the field. And from the quarterback position, especially a guy who's the number 3 pick overall, you do want to protect a bit. So as Mayo said, he wants him to be able to play behind the first line a little more.
And what that first line looks like is going to be interesting. I mean, the Patriots got a little bit banged up in that game. Gerard Mayo said they're bringing in offensive linemen for workouts right now. So that's a group that came in, circled on the calendar because of the deficiency on the roster so far going into the season, and it seems like between injury and everything else, it's going to be an interesting go there. As far as the Joe Milton portion of things, Patriots fans, listen to me. There's going to be a lot of college football people that want to come and tell you why this isn't going to work. They're going to say, look what happened at Michigan. Look what happened at Tennessee, where he was supposed to be the answer there. And then Hendon Hooker, who we'll talk about shortly, ends up coming in, taking over, having an almost Heisman season before he gets hurt against South Carolina. They're going to try and steal your joy. Say, don't watch the videos of him doing a backflip pregame. Don't watch him throw an orange 100 yards. And I'm here to tell you, don't listen to them. Because even if it didn't work for them, it can still work for you. And I am actually, Dad, in all sincerity, I'm rooting for it to work for Joe Milton. It would be awesome to see him take all those gifts and finally put it together in a way that we just didn't see in the way that we always expected. He was a favorite every year for Dark Horse Heisman chatter going into the season, all these things we wanted because the ability is so otherworldly. It's Anthony Richardson-esque in that body. And so I have no idea if it'll truly work. History tells us that it hasn't, but again, why not root for the guy? Why not hope that this can be the difference now here in New England if it for some reason does pop off and things don't work out with Drake May?
Oh, yeah, you always root for the lower round draft pick, the guy that's not supposed to be the guy. I mean, that's kind of what you do. So that doesn't surprise me. And they beat a Carolina team, which is just, even in preseason, is just unspectacular, right? I mean, there's just nothing about them that I think even their fan base can grab hold of. As I said, the whole starting defense didn't play except for one person, Dane Jackson. And offensively, no Bryce Young. Andy Dalton, the backup, was hurt. So you had Jake Plummer in there starting, and he's going to be no threat.
Jake's back.
Jack Plummer, I'm sorry. So no threat in any of the quarterback scenarios. So they're just a team that just seems to be kind of there right now.
You know,
yes, they exist. They are relatively juiceless, though, Emerson.
Patriots have an okay history of 6th round quarterbacks that didn't really have high expectations for,
And to Dad's point, though, it's not like Joe Milton is not supposed. He's been supposed to be the guy his entire career. I remember in 2020, in the lead up to that COVID-shortened season, everyone saying, hey, Harbaugh's found his guy. Like, Joe Milton was supposed to be the dude at Michigan before J.J. McCarthy, and then certainly at Tennessee before, I think it was they played Pitt that year, and that was finally when they made the switch to Hendon Hooker and things happened. Like, it's supposed to have been Joe Milton for a while. So, Emerson, I want Michigan to, or excuse me, I want Michigan fans. Well, it seems like New England, Michigan fans, there's always been that tie. I want New England fans to get to experience this entirely on their own. Don't let jaded college football fans ruin this time for you.
They're so desperate. Like, half of our team here at DraftKings, all Patriots fans, including producer Slates. You saw him on the email last night. He's like, I'm fully on the Joe Milton hype train. I said, this is the same looking hype train as one preseason game after Malik Cunningham last year. And what did that do? Nothing. He's a wide receiver for Baltimore now.
That's what preseason is supposed to be about, though. It's delusions of grandeur in this time of year. And honestly, the thing I legitimately got excited about, Dad, like, I don't know what your biggest thing that popped for you in watching those games last night. for me, I was so excited to see Hendon Hooker out there running the offense for the Detroit Lions right now. It's been him and Nate Sudfeld competing for that backup role behind Jared Goff. And Hendon Hooker had a redshirt year last year coming off the ACL in college that we just talked about. Ended up leaving the game earlier than expected, I think in the third quarter with a concussion, Dan Campbell announced after the game. So glad it was nothing that's going to be hopefully season ending or anything like that. 5 for 9, 36 yards, had a big run where he lowered the shoulder and the boomstick on somebody on that defense, and just overall looked comfortable, I think, for the most part, moving around there in the pocket. Still maybe a little tuck and run heavy, but I just want to see him continue to get the reps, because that is a player that, despite being a little bit older than maybe you'd want for your young quarterback in the room, I think he was a guy that showed a ton of potential at Tennessee and is a player I'm generally a fan of.
Oh, he was without question the one I was watching last night in a true football sense of what was he going to do. What were we going to see out of him because of the redshirt year, because of the run that he was on at Tennessee, how well he was playing at Tennessee, the talk of him, and then the horrible knee injury just knocked him out of the first season in Detroit as well. So I am all in on watching him, and can he win that backup job, because he's got a lot, even with the bad knee, not being able to do a whole lot last year, just getting caught up again. As you mentioned, 5 of 9, led the team in rushing with the big run as well. He's going to get his opportunity. That's going to be a good battle, I think, for the backup, because you have to. You got to have the good ready for a backup, because you're one play away from starting. But he was definitely the one I watched the most on, just to see where he is in the work without question, a work in progress.
Back-to-back Josh Heupel, Tennessee quarterbacks playing on the same night. Getting fans excited. None of this is possible without my UCF Knights not having enough money to keep the hype train on the tracks, which is why he left to go to Tennessee.
It is interesting, though, thinking about those quarterbacks making the jump, because Josh Heupel's offense, as you've talked to anyone who studies the draft, is a nightmare to try and project to the next level, because it's the ultimate college spread, RPO, hurry-up offense that thrives on doing things that don't work as well in the NFL and concepts that don't really exist as much at the next level. So it's a big jump for these guys to all of a sudden, even seeing Joe Milton under center last night. Both of these guys in the offenses that they run was in such stark contrast to what we saw for them in their time in Tennessee, where the offense is potent, works in college. They got big expectations for their second-year signal caller going into this season, but not as big as the expectations in New England right now. Coming up next, we bid farewell to a legend who decided to call it a career yesterday. Nick Foles, take your bow, next on GoJo and Golic.
Well, it's a sad day, a day that we know will come in the career of every professional football player. Jags legend Nick Foles is deciding to retire. He's going to retire with the Eagles during their home opener September 16th against the Atlanta Falcons. He played for 6 teams over 11 seasons. After being drafted by Philly in the 3rd round of the 2012 draft, he announced his retirement on social media and had a special message for Philly fans.
Specifically, thank you to the Philadelphia Eagles fans. Thank you for all your support from 2012 when I was drafted to 2017 when I came back. You truly made playing in Philadelphia the most special experience in my football career.
Of course, known for the Philly special here in the Super Bowl versus the Patriots. Patriots fans love that guy. A legendary moment, though, authored by the least likely of quarterbacks. Yes, he has called it a career. Locals would say it was a good John. Yeah, that's cool.
And they would also call him a nickname that we can't say on air. So congratulations
Say it,
to
coward.
Nick Foles. Dad,
Say it.
one of the more unique careers that we had seen. Had that prolific run when Chip Kelly first got to Philadelphia and never really seemed to be able to make it work outside of Philadelphia. 21-11 in Philly in his career, 8-18 with everybody else for a perfectly balanced 29-29 in 11 NFL seasons. But obviously well known for that Super Bowl run. Him and a host of backup quarterbacks try and slay the dragon that is Tom Brady, and ends up pulling it off in some of the most dramatic fashion we can ever remember. The guy's never going to have to buy a beer again as long as he lives in Philadelphia. So really cool run for a player that just had a unique road towing that line between starter and backup.
And some of the records that he has the most passing yards in a single game in Eagles history when he's just started, 32 games. At 471 yards, shares the NFL record for most consecutive completions in a single game with 25. Is one of 3 quarterbacks to throw at least 25 touchdowns and have 2 interceptions in a season. It's he, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers in 2013 when he went 28 and 2 touchdowns to interception. So just, the highest of highs he would hit at times. And obviously, with the Philly special in the Super Bowl win and the touchdown just was an incredible moment to where he will never have to pay for another drink. But just a wild career, ending up 29-29 in 11 seasons, but having the time he did with Philly. Just a kind of a head-scratching career with some great highs, though, and some great memories for him, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's incredible. I always think of that drawing from the final 4 quarterbacks left in that run last year where was it Case Keenum that was backing or starting for the Vikings at that point? Who was it? It was Nick Foles and Tom Brady, and then it was it the Case Keenum? Anyone? All right, yeah, we've got confirmation on that. The 4 of them all looking up at the Lombardi Trophy there is what's stuck in my head forever relative to Nick Foles. That and my favorite Nick Foles fact, and shout out to ESPN's Mina Kimes who pointed this out to me back in the day, as Mina spent her time, part of her life growing up in Arizona, the same place that we grew up for a little bit. Very fond of this Mexican grill. This might be for locals only, called Z Tejas. I don't even know if it's still around and survived the pandemic, but Nick Foles' dad, Larry Foles, is the founder of Eddie V's Edgewater Grill and has co-owned other restaurants in the Austin area. They're from Texas and other major cities and helped develop the Z Tejas Southwestern Grill that still resides in Austin and was in Scottsdale for a while. So leaving a legacy far beyond just the field dad, the Foles family making it happen.
Oh, we went to that restaurant right by the mall that we lived in the area of. So we would head there and have some of their cornbread. Oh my God, it was so
that
good.
Skillet cornbread
so good.
goes and absolutely plays. So I am giving Nick Foles resume credit for the Z Tejas Skillet cornbread, in addition to an incredible Super Bowl and an overall fantastic career that he should be incredibly proud of. So from one guy that towed the line of backup quarterback and starter to a whole quarterback room in Pittsburgh that seems to be doing that right now. Emerson, we've got a fascinating situation brewing in Pittsburgh ahead of the their game tonight.
Yeah, we certainly do. A game against the Texans. So tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And head coach Mike Tomlin, listen to this, saying Justin Fields will start, but Wilson is QB1 as he's dealing with a calf injury. So it very much is a competition, is what Tomlin said on Wednesday here at GoJo, of the starting quarterback position. What happens in the stadium is weighted heavier than what happens in a practice setting because it's more game-like. So do you believe Fields can really win this job with a strong preseason performance?
Dad, I think he's cracked the door open in a way that's worth monitoring right now, because all we heard all offseason was this is Russ's job, Russ is QB1, no ifs, ands, or buts, despite the fact that I think they're actually paying Justin Fields more money than they're paying Russell Wilson's salary right now, even though both are negligible enough to where it's why you made the gamble. But for Justin Fields, who does fit the pistol quarterback run version of Arthur Smith's offense that we saw him run most recently with Marcus Mariota, helped Ryan Tannehill play some of his best ball, he's fit that archetype a little more than in most people's minds Russell Wilson does, and he's been healthy. And Mike Tomlin, I could still hear that man saying on a practice field, you can't make the club in the tub. And in this case, it's a reminder that competition is the lifeblood for that guy. And if you've got a quarterback in Justin Fields who's made the most of his reps and opportunities and seems to be getting more and more of them, it's hard not to look at this and start to feel like he's got a chance to unseat Russell Wilson before the season gets going.
That's it. Taking advantage of his opportunities, getting more opportunities because Russell Wilson's got the calf injury, and that's what happens. You know, one man goes down, another man steps up with the opportunity. And if he can obviously make the correct decisions, not hold the ball too long, get the ball out of his hands to his receivers, because the running aspect of it is no contest of the two and their ability to run, whether a called run, which you would do with Justin Fields, certainly more than a Russell Wilson. So, yeah, the door has opened for him because opportunities have grown for him.
And if you don't believe us, maybe you'll believe ESPN NFL front office insider Louis Riddick, who joined the Dan Patrick Show the other day and talked about what he believes might be the writing on the wall right now.
I have a feeling, based on my conversations, that if if Justin can continue to ascend like he is looking in practice, he's going to start week 1.
Well,
he's going to be an opening day starter.
See, I
thought he was going to be a starter at some point anyway.
And Dad, I think that last point is the one that I've latched on to the most, is they owe neither of these guys enough, both in equity in terms of their station in the franchise or in actual equity in terms of the money, to where they can't play both depending on how things go in this season. But with Justin Fields, if he's shown an ability to elevate his floor, at this point, based on age and physical ability, the ceiling is much higher than Russell's at this point.
Oh, without a doubt. And if he's playing on an equal footing with Russ, then I would start Justin Fields without question. You know, the younger, the longer of the careers to go. And that's the thing about it. He's getting the opportunity to close the gap, because I thought it was Russ Wilson's all the way, that he was going to be the starter. He would have the starter lion's share of the reps. But the calf injury and a calf muscle can be damning. You know, it can keep you out for a bit, and the longer it gives Justin Fields the opportunity, the more chance that he's going to have to start. I could definitely see it go this way with the opportunities, more and more on-field opportunities for Justin.
Because remember, everyone in this team right now is getting acclimated to a new offense, but both quarterbacks especially. It's their first year over with this team. They're getting used to everything, and so all of these reps matter a ton. We talk about this for young players, guys trying to make the squad in general, but now as we're going to get to, we're still, 4 or 5 weeks out from the start of the season, so there's time. But Dad, you know as well as I do, and better even, that there's a point in training camp where you got to make a decision as a staff of who you're going to start to give these to as you get ready for the real season.
And wouldn't Justin Fields love to be the starter and lead an offense that was a little more potent than the Chicago Bears offense? Everybody's human. They're not robots out there. They're human beings. And one team gave up on him, and he'd like to repay that with a little bit of great play in Pittsburgh.
There's no doubt about it. Like you said, every athlete's got an ego. It's the only way you can succeed at that high of a level. And so if you told me deep down in places that Justin Fields maybe only whispers about at parties, he was looking forward to that, I, for one, wouldn't be shocked. And, hey, we'll wait and see. Maybe he'll have a shiny new toy at wide receiver to throw to soon if this Brandon Ayuk situation ever resolves itself. All right, guys, let's finish off the show and the week the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick ones to send you into the weekend. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Tell a friend about it. Leave us a 5-star rating. And check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. You can find it on our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, Xumo Play, all those other fun places. If you miss that live, though, or any of our great guests and want to check those out, and thank you to Vikings left tackle Christian Darrisaw for joining us from training camp. And, of course, Paul Finebaum, host of the Paul Finebaum Show on the SEC Network, for talking some college ball with us. You can hear those interviews wherever you get our podcast or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done with the show. And guys, let's get to this. You want the heartstrings tugged at, look no further than what we saw this week in Olympic swimming. Now, we have seen and talked about the controversy of Olympic triathletes swimming in the river out there and the conditions, but the triathletes swim about 1,500 meters up and down the Seine. The marathon swimmers are in the water for 6.2 miles, 10,000 meters. It's a lot of time to think. And for Sharon van Roendaal of the Netherlands, she spent a lot of time thinking about her dog doing this. The Dutch Olympic swimmer won gold in the women's 10,000-meter open water race in honor of her late dog, Rio. She said, "I will swim with him for him with my whole heart, and I did it. I won for him." Her dog passed away during training after her dog's death in Maydad. She said she didn't care about swimming for 3 weeks. Her world stopped, and then she turned him into her motivation. So for anyone that's ever owned a dog, and I know all of us on the set right now, big dog owners, big dog lovers, this got me choked up yesterday big time.
Oh, yeah, getting your feels with this one. As you mentioned, we're all big dog people. And, I mean, just the relationship you bond with your dog, with your pets. You know, I'd say your pets, not just your dogs, but in this case, your dog. And for us, our dogs, it's just heartbreaking. And so for her to be in the depths that she was of not wanting to swim and then to come out of it with the help of her father to get back in the water and swim and win it for her dog Rio is just the coolest thing. I mean, sad, unbelievably sad, but a very, very cool ending.
This is the darkest time of my life, losing our last dog. Like, I've lost family members I have loved through and through, but nothing is worse on this planet Earth than losing a dog. It is terrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
She had a tattoo that she got 3 days after her dog's cremation on her wrist that you saw her pointing to very emotionally after the race was over there. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to Rio for helping in his own way from the great beyond over the Rainbow Bridge. Emerson, let's get away from this so we can all get away from the verge of tears and talk about that, which is a buttery Caitlin Clark.
I'm like getting emotional here. Damn you, Slates, and anyone else who put that in the rundown. All right, so let's butter this thing up a little bit. Caitlin Clark, everyone knows, Iowa legend, a legend in the States, a daughter of the state, legend for the Hawkeyes, and all she's done and continues to do here, guys, to represent her home state. Clark has received a supreme honor for the second year running. Check this out. At the 2024 Iowa State Fair, Clark's likeness is on display in the form of a butter sculpture, which are a staple of the festivities every year. And as you can see on the left, compared to this year, the attention to detail, much more impressive this time around. Last year looked a little soft. You know, butter can be soft. It can melt in humid temperatures, but impressive either way.
It is, Dad. The butter sculptures of the Iowa State Fair are a thing of beauty. The butter cow is the real piece de resistance in this. It starts with wood, metal, wire, steel mesh, and about 600 pounds of low moisture, pure cream Iowa butter. Ooh. And then they go to work at making that statue. And Emerson's absolutely right. They took feedback from last year. They saw what Caitlin Clark gave to both the state of Iowa and to now the WNBA in Indiana, and they decided to honor her with a much more, I mean, this is the high-def version, right? You had standard def last year, now you have high-definition butter this year.
4K, 8K?
I'm surprised. It was just a year ago. I mean, why is the statue look so much different? It's amazing how much more they seem to care about it this year and put more detail into it as opposed to last year. We had high def last year on TVs. You know, what was the matter with her butter statue last year? It looks so soft compared to this year's.
Maybe it was a little hotter last year. You don't know. Like, they have to keep these things in a cooler while they've got them ready to go. Maybe it was a little toasty last summer in Iowa.
Just slather a loaf of bread on that.
By the way,
thing.
Speaking of toast, Did you know, and this is courtesy of the iowastatefair.org, that a real dairy cow weighs more than 1,000 pounds, but the butter version ends up weighing about 600 pounds, and that a butter cow would butter about 19,200 slices of toast and take an average person 2 lifetimes to consume. How about that?
It's a lot of butter,
wow.
dude.
I thought you were gonna say what the average butter sculpture they have at the fair each year. How many pieces of toast it'll butter? I didn't know you were going to go to the actual dairy cow and how many pieces it buttered.
Toast
but
with
I'd like
butter
to know
is
if you
so
start
good.
using the Caitlin Clark statue, how many pieces of toast that'll butter.
That'd be a great question. She was not the only celebrity statue, by the way. This year, the companion statues, as they're called, for the butter cow included notable nighttime celebrities, Johnny Carson, Steve Higgins, and Jimmy Fallon. So all of them honored with their for their contributions with butter statues. Last year, alongside Caitlin Clark, it was Iowa State legendary football player Jack Trice, the namesake for the stadium, Kurt Warner, alongside Caitlin Clark as well. From Dad, you remember the Iowa Barnstormer days.
Yeah, boy, they put in work on those butter sculptures.
Dude.
I didn't realize that. Thought it was just one. They have multiple. That's putting. Well, I guess it wouldn't be shocking for the Iowa State Fair, but that's pretty impressive. And they're not miniature sculptures either. I mean, these are good life-size sculptures.
Ginormous sculptures of butter, dude.
This is handmade, artfully crafted, good old down-home Iowa butter. So congratulations, Caitlin Clark, and a sea of awards and honors that she's presented almost every waking moment of her life. I have to imagine that the butter stands alone. Emerson, let's get to the third. What do we got, man?
All right, speaking of smooth as butter here, guys. Jameis Winston meeting with the media yesterday, and of course, it went as expected, extremely smooth. When he was asked about expectations for Deshaun Watson as QB1, he said he wants to be and will be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, okay? A bold claim, but that wasn't even his best line, right? Here's what else he had to say in regards to the Browns starter.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of people forget. When you can go out, you can see practice, you can knick-knack, this, that, patty whack, give a dog a bone. Deshaun Watson is going to turn it on. He always going to find a way to shine when the lights come on. Man, I just rhymed. Oh my, can I leave off that one? I know that one going to hit.
Is there anything more inspirational, GoJo, than the quote, you can knick-knack, this, that, patty whack, give a dog a bone?
No, they're probably going to put that up on a board inside the locker room so that players every day when they go out to practice are reminded of those sage words as they go to work for the 2024 season. Dad, Jameis Winston, we've seen interview a fish before. Obviously, last year he authored a live coup in the middle of the Saints game to get Alvin Kamara a touchdown during the kneel down. So you never really know what the hell's going to happen with this guy.
That was, I did not see that rhyme getting put into a football context. So that was somewhat interesting. But I have to say, he did it rather smoothly. I mean, he I don't know how much sense it actually made, but he did it, and it did sound kind of smooth. And even so, to the fact that he was proud of himself and wanted to end the presser on that rhyme.
Well, that's just a savvy move when you don't want to talk anymore at a press conference to say something so distracting. It's like when Bill Belichick would go off on special teams players, or God rest his soul, Mike Leach used to go off on rants on any of number Bigfoot conspiracies, alien conspiracies, to try and just distract the media long enough to hope that they get bored or forget what they were supposed to write on deadline and just let you go on about the rest of your day. That's really the veteran move in my mind.
Yeah, it's a pretty good move then, because again, I didn't see that rhyme getting worked in. I don't even know how that came into his mind, quite honestly.
Well, we deserve to see extended Jameis Winston minutes this season.
Do.
We got a Joe Flacco revival in Cleveland last year, and somehow, some way, I'm not certainly wishing injury on Deshaun Watson or anything like that, but somehow, some way, we need Jameis Winston out there on the field to just see if we can tap back into any part of that good version of the 30 for 30 quarterback that we saw in Tampa years ago. If you thought you saw the good version of us today, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review it, leave us a 5-star rating. Have a great weekend. Enjoy all the preseason football, freaks. We love you. Talk to you Monday.